So I'm here with Bevan Eatts, a very well-known Manjimup farmer around this place. Thank you for your time, Bevan.
Pleasure.
Just wanted to say, would you tell us a little bit about yourself,
Yep.
your farming background, what you do here?
So I'm third generation farmer. So it started back in 1947. Grandfather moved here. He was a shearer by trade, and between him and my father, they built up the farm over those years. Now we do like mixed farming, which is basically, so we still do the sheep and for fat lamb production and wool. We do cattle for beef production, and we grow mixed vegetable lines. Over the last 20 odd years, we've also had stone fruit orchard, but we've transitioned out of that because it's just become too difficult to make money out of.
Yeah. So my Churchill project looks at regenerative agriculture and the consumer drivers and incentives for it. Understand there's a lot of contention around regenerative agriculture. Firstly, do you identify as a regenerative farmer?
Well, you know, the term of what a regenerative farmer is still quite confusing for a lot of farmers and probably consumers. So I probably do identify as a regenerative farmer, and what got me into I suppose that line is when we planted our orchard back in 1997. I started questioning a lot of other farmers about, you know, what fertiliser they use, their growing practices, and all they could answer was, well, we've done it this way for the last 20 years, and that's why we still do the same. We don't question why. So that got me looking at changed my mentality, because when we're growing vegetables, you rotate from one paddock to the next, and that's a good 4-year rotation.
Yep.
So we basically looked at, well, with an orchard, we've got to change the mentality. You're in that same ground year after year, so we need to look after the soil a bit better. Sorry.
That's all right.
Excuse me. Apologies. So we looked at the biology in the soil. We looked at basically how, if you look at after the soil, that looks after the plant. And then basically you end up with a healthier plant, healthier food. Whatever eats that fruit, then it goes on and basically goes down the food chain. And we did notice that once you started looking after your soil, your biology, your plants were healthier. You didn't have insect and pest problems. We didn't have to use chemicals. So, you know, we were basically transitioning right away from chemicals, and we've got a big focus on minimum chemical use. You know, we still do the old style, you plough out rather than going in with a Roundup or something like that when you're working up their pasture. So obviously branding is very important, and farm branding, and I've been very lucky with the involvement with Southern Cross Food Council over the years to see the power of developing a strong farm brand, and now we're starting to do that at our farm level as well.
Right. And you talked about the consumers, you know, farmers don't really know what it means, and then that means consumers are confused. So what do you think can be done to make it clear?
It's like everything. Education is a good thing, and probably our state and federal governments really need to put in some guidelines, and probably with good consultation with our stakeholders and the farmers of what actually ticks all the boxes to meet that regen. And I think that's what we're probably missing at the moment. It can be as simple as, you know, planting a heap of trees, or it could be growing some good crops to plough back into your soil. So there's a whole mix of things. But the reality is, you know, for me, a big one is if you can look after your soil, which looks after your plants, and then you grow some crops that, because you don't use chemicals doesn't mean they're higher in nutrition.
Yep.
You've got to have that whole link through the food chain, and then that whole mineral testing and what goes into your soil.
So you talk about the governments having a role in defining or providing some kind of guidance on what it means. What we're seeing right now globally is all these big food companies making commitments to regenerative agriculture, and they are defining what it means. So what do you think about their commitments, and, you know, when they say what it means to them? Is there a risk there towards more adoption?
Look, there's always a risk. You know, I've always been a big believer that, you know, your supermarket chains, for example, there's a lot of, in orcharding, club varieties where you can grow a certain type of apple, but you have to pay royalties to the association that owns it. So what's happening now is there's supermarket chains that are owning certain varieties of
Okay.
apples, and it's happening in vegetables as well, where you can only grow that type of variety if you commit and sell to that supermarket chain. So they'll basically dictate what you grow, how much you grow, and how much you get paid and when you grow it. And that's always a bit of a concern. It's good if you're on the inside, but if you're one of the farmers that are on the outside, it can have ramifications of what's available for you to grow and whatever. And if you end up with, I suppose the point I'm trying to make with this is that if you end up with the supermarkets dictating that whole process along the chain, then they're going to obviously make sure that outcomes are always in their favour, and probably not in the farmer's favour and the true environment's favour, and probably the consumer's favour, because then they'll come in. This is ticking all the boxes, but we probably need to dig deeper in what boxes is that actually ticking.
So maybe let's broaden it from regenerative agriculture to sustainability. Do you think consumers are, well, your customers, value environmental sustainability?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think they do. I think people now more than ever want to know where their produce comes from, how it was grown, and have that connection through to that farmer, and that's where I think branding plays a really important that connection. I think there's just a lot of loose terms along the way with quality assurance programs and whatever else you can do. I'm not saying we need more. Yeah. I'm saying we need to do it better, and it's just a little bit, I suppose, up to the discretion of a few organisations of what it should be, and it's probably not the best outcome for the industry or for the consumers.
How do you then tell your story to the consumer?
Well, look, keep in mind we're a very, very small family farm, so we've started using QR codes on our packaging, on our obviously cauliflowers. We can't put that on because it's a leafy vegetable, but on our hard lines we're using QR codes that links up back to a website where we've got some promotional videos on how we grow it, on how we cook it. We've had a cooking school help do us a few videos and stuff like that. So that's probably the cheapest and the simplest way for us to engage with the end consumer, because we don't rely on the retail store to promote us. Like, it's there. If the customer wants to, they can scan it, and then they can link back and get into contact. Now, we don't have the money obviously to put behind a big advertising campaign and stuff like that, but it is starting to grow, and I think all we can do is provide a link to the information and a link to us, and then it'll grow from there. And
what about social media?
Yeah, social media plays a huge part in telling that. The problem you have is farmers are flat out growing the stuff, and at the time when they should be doing the social media, the promotional videos, we just don't have, probably the skill set is a good one. I myself am not really big on social media. I've had plenty of people show me how it works, goes in one ear and out the other, and don't really do much on it, well, nothing at all really. But I also understand the importance and how valuable it is.
All right. I think it's a very interesting perspective, the connection with the consumer to the farmer, and I've heard studies about farmers being a very trusted source that consumers listen to. So I think that
and look, I've never really come across too many farmers that are trying to do the wrong thing. They all love the land that they live on and they work, and they're all in it for the long haul. And I just think there's a lot of new initiatives that's happening, and a lot comes onto our industry groups to provide that connection, that guidance, and that overall, I suppose, being able to tell that story to the end consumers on how the food's grown, and how it actually happens right back on land, because a lot of consumers don't realise the effort that goes into growing a crop. It's not like, if we're talking brassicas crops here, if you're going to do true regen agriculture, probably, in the 6 months before that crop, you put a cover crop in the ground, put it back into the soil. So it's not just, let's put a cauliflower and broccoli in the ground, keep the insects off it, pick it, and sell it. There's a lot more to it, and building healthier soils up, and ensuring that you're using little to no chemicals, and basically maximising the carbon and that you can put back into your soil, which adds other values to the whole life in the soil.
All right. I think that's all the questions I've got for you. Do you have any final thoughts on regenerative agriculture, consumers? Any incentives? What are incentives?
Incentives. Ooh, that's a good one. I think the first step, and the incentive I'd like to see is truly what is deemed as, is regen agriculture. Is it locking up some natural bush? Is it,
Yep.
Is it
What is
basically, replanting your creek lines? Is it just putting cover crops in, working them into your ground? And so there's still a lot of, I suppose, lack of clarity about exactly what ticks all those boxes. And and I think it'll be like that for a while. But look, you've got to start somewhere, and that's a good thing. Sometimes whenever we've done initiatives, it's always hard to get the retailers on board, and that's probably a good thing that they're leading the way.
Yeah.
And as long as they're engaging and listening to the industry, then I think it'll only be a good thing.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bevan.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
No worries. Hopefully it was helpful.
It was. Thank you so much.
No worries. Cheers. Thank you.
So my 3 key takeaways from my interview with Bevan. First one, what is regenerative agriculture? Again, the elephant in the room makes an appearance. Secondly, education is very important, and how big food companies and big retailers can play a part in that education piece. And thirdly, branding is a whole story. It's not just about sustainability, not about regenerative, but also about provenance, traceability, where your food comes from, the stories of the farming families. And Bevan, I just want to say thank you so much for affording me the privilege to interview you, for spending so much of your precious time with me. And it was so lovely to meet your son, Ewan, the 4th generation farmer. This is one of the reasons why I love the Western Australian agriculture sector so much. It's the story of the farmers and their families all working together. So Bevan, hopefully by the end of the year, I will be able to taste some of your amazing Bravo slices. If you want to find out more about Bevan and his agribusiness, go to his Instagram account at Southern Forest Flavours. That's Flavours with a U, Flavours, and his website, www.southernforestflavors.com.au. All produce grown on Bevan's farm is done under their other company, Morning Glory Farms. Morning Glory Farms has a Facebook page, as you can see listed here. I've also included here information about my Churchill Fellowship if you want to find out more. Thank you for watching, everyone.